4.5-month wait is finally over. Guardians fans had to wait a little bit longer for the winter to finally end. Guardians didn't play the Athletics until 10 o'clock. And unfortunately for listeners, the Guardians playing on the West Coast means that we don't get to recap a full game action in today's podcast, but we'll get to some in-game action today. We'll talk about the opening day lineup and what that says for the rest of the year. Guardians also were active on the trade market on opening day. We'll get to some of those moves as well. It is baseball season. Let's go.
You are Locked On Guardians, your daily podcast on the Cleveland Guardians, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to the show today. If you wanted to line this up with the baseball game, right now they are showing Jose Ramirez in the on-deck circle. It is 9:10 my time, 8:10 Eastern, and the first pitch was not thrown. That was a warm-up by Alex Wood. I do want to do a quick, shout out in case people have missed it. I like to help people get free stuff. Again, if you're a T-Mobile person like me, log into the T-Mobile Life app. It's free no matter what your plan is. Free. I'm using the free MLB TV on my secondary screen here right now to watch the game. But yeah, these are fun trades. These got me kind of juiced today. Not because it gave me a reason to avoid working on my taxes, though that was also a benefit. But they were fun trades. We got to see the lineup. There was something I loved about the lineup and something I loathed about the lineup. If you're a longtime listener, someone like John or David, who I see in the comments all the time, I'm sure I don't love that. That's an inauspicious start to the season. Then you can likely know what it was.
So don't tell me that.
It was a pop-up on a bunt.
Yeah, okay. Don't bunt. That's the rule. That's the lesson here is don't bunt. Very quickly too, before we get into more of that, we might have some new listeners today. I want to shout out. I'm not really big on. I don't really care about like who follows me on Twitter, just because Twitter is a crap show these days. Yeah, it's a sinking ship, and it doesn't really mean anything. But I will shout out always to Jake on Twitter, because he was nice enough to throw both of us on this list, and it drew a lot of attention to people who were on this list. So if you're new to the show
today,
so if you're new to the show because you were new followers for us, that's Jeff. I'm Justin. I've been covering the Indians/Guardians farm system since 2007. So that's over 17 years. Yeah, that's over 17 years. I got my press credential today for the captain, so it's going to be year 18 for me, although I guess it's 17 if you count 2020 out. I've done freelance work for the News Herald and the Morning Journal, which if you pick up a copy this week, or at least you pick up a copy on Thursday, I've got a couple of pieces in there. So I've been covering I was also the previous managing editor for Indians Baseball Insider / Guardians Baseball Insider from 2018 to 2022.
Yeah, it was before. I mean, I've been with this podcast from its inception. One of the first people they brought on when they expanded into baseball. Before that, as a lead draft and prospect analyst at Scout and 24/7, replaced Kylie McDaniel at Scout. I was their first choice, weirdly enough. And then I wrote at Indians/Guardians Baseball Insider for a lot of years. I started there in 2007. We could have the measuring contest. I technically started in the off season of 2007, though. So I think you might actually have me beat for a start date.
Yeah, I was actually during the minor league season in 2007.
Yeah, I was
right out of high school. Yeah, after I graduated. So, well, that's okay. We've both been doing this long enough to we can call ourselves old, I guess. Yeah. So your opening day was filled with doing taxes. I was going to ask what you normally do on opening day.
I don't have any traditions.
We made hot dogs tonight, and we had just kind of baseball food. And although I told my wife, I have this tradition. I don't know if you have any superstitions, Jeff, but I have this superstition for Guardians games specifically. When we go to games, I only eat peanuts when the Guardians are losing. If they're winning, So my wife was watching the game upstairs while we're recording this podcast because she just started spring break. She's a teacher. And I came down to the basement, started recording, and I said, "You're not allowed to eat peanuts unless we're losing. It's officially baseball season, so you can't go and start eating peanuts now." And I said, well, all right, fine. We're at home. You can do whatever you want, I guess. We're not at the game. But I said, if Oakland starts winning and you're eating peanuts, just know who to blame. So,
yeah, they definitely just went gently into that good night in the first inning. That was
I finally caught
great.
up to that.
Not
if
great.
You are new here, we need to get into today's podcast. But if you are new here, we cover the Guardians every single day. As far as I know, we're the only podcast that covers the Guardians 5 days a week. So we dig into everything from Jose Ramirez's performance down to who the Guardians' like 5th round pick is going to be this year. We cover everything.
What do you mean 5th round? I mean, I'm going to cover the
10th round.
We're going to go all the way 20.
We
cover
are.
every single player.
We're not going to be able to preview their 10th round pick, but once they pick them, we'll review them. So we'll get there come July. We're
Maybe
going to do a lot of draft content this year.
I'm kidding.
Yeah, we'll be there. Maybe. All right, first lineup of the year. So, the fun thing to do is not overanalyze these things, but because we can't really recap the entire game because everyone likes to focus on the first lineup of the year, I am curious to see if there are some tells. I do love the flexibility, I will say.
Yeah.
I know people are like, oh, Austin Hedges is playing. We'll talk about that. And like,
might be Bieber's personal catcher, right?
Yeah, I think that we can get to that. I think that's true. But like, I do like the idea of, okay, so Fry is in there against a lefty. I like the idea of that, especially with the rotating DH. And not having like Florial and Brennan in there. You can really sit your lefties. I like Jose hitting second. And I know Vogt said that he may not always hit second, but if he thinks that's what team gives the team the best chance to score runs off the starter that given day, he will do it.
It does by
yes.
Data.
It does, but if he wants to move him down to third and put Jimenez against righty second or whatever, I'm fine with that. I know you want to talk about Jimenez. Too.
If you're going to move him down the lineup and hit Jimenez second, it should be against lefties, not righties, because for the last 2 years he's hit lefties better than righties. That's I know people are like, you're already complaining, Jeff, but like, if you know me,
no, he was better against lefties last year. He was.
And the year before,
he had a 101. He had a 101 WRC plus last year against lefties. Last year it was 96 against righties. So
yeah, and he was better in 22 as well. That's back he's better against lefties than righties. Like he should
160. 160 in 2022, 137 against righties.
He's been significantly
throughout his career.
Yes, he's better against lefties and righties. He is a guy with reverse platoon splits. It's not just one season of data. We now have multiple seasons. He should be hitting higher than 7th. It shouldn't be about handedness. This is like,
I agree.
You're going to get me if you're one of those everydayers like I talked about, like John and David. It's like they probably knew that this was going to set me this. And if he slides into first base, I'm walking off this show. Like if no one has explained to him that you don't slide into first base for a multitude of reasons, one being it's less effective, as he is the king of that. I'm just going to blow my top.
Off-season project was to stop doing that. You'd like to hope.
But I just don't understand. Like, hey, we're taking this more analytical approach, putting Jose 2. We're doing everything else. It's an interesting, fun lineup. And then we still don't move the guy up who hits lefties best on this team a year ago.
Ooh, that was a nasty curveball. Or that was a slider from Bieber. It was nasty, though. It was good. No, I agree with you. I should hit higher no matter what.
I mean, you could even argue flipping him and Quan. Like, if you want to keep Jose 2, then flip him and Quan. Like, that's what should be done.
My only thing with not hitting Jimenez higher is
hey,
he's
we got
a more
a
aggressive hitter. He's more of an aggressive hitter. So I am concerned about that. But like the thing about, I know some people are like, really, Ramon Laureano's hitting third. I'm okay with Ramon Laureano hitting third against lefties.
Yeah.
Yes. He career-wise against lefties, he does a good job. So, and that's what I like what the flexibility is. You want to know what? I do like the idea. Like last year was not Ramon Laureano's best year. Obviously, that's why he was on waivers. But against lefties last year, though, he still had a 791 OPS. He actually had a 732 OPS against righties. So it wasn't like he was terrible. He just, and to be fair, it was also his for a second half when he got to Cleveland was much better. But for his career, he is just much better against lefties. And I'm okay with him hitting third in the lineup if that's what it takes to break up the lefties and give yourself a chance. I like the split. I like the platoons. I like, having Fry in there.
Fry play. I mean, he was a lefty murderer in the minors. Like, I like
giving yourself a chance.
Basically, I was like, okay. This is all great. Jimenez 7th. Like, it was just for me all. And then I'm like, and no Naylor. But then I was quickly like, is that 2 strikeouts in an inning? Did that last year ever?
Shane Bieber, and it was on a slider, a called slider.
Yeah, I know. And the
I took Shane Bieber
on
over 6 strikeouts tonight. Just FYI.
His other one, I believe they said was on a cutter. So I mean, And this is why you didn't trade him the offseason, because you're going to get 10
Yeah.
cents on the dollar. If he pitches like he did
Yeah, that
in
slider's looking
22,
really good.
you'll get much more for half a season of Bieber than you would have gotten this offseason. That's just the truth of it.
Or you make the playoffs and Shane Bieber
And you
is
get a
your
draft pick.
game 1 starter. Yeah,
Yeah.
you get a draft pick. Do we think that Austin Hedges is going to be the personal catcher? I had some people text me today and they were frustrated about Austin Hedges in the game 1 lineup. But I understand that, because obviously, let's be honest, Hedges is in here for his bat.
Yeah.
But I want to say, I think David Fry being here is going to limit this. No matter what, you can guarantee Hedges is going to start at least 1 game a week, no matter what.
Yeah.
That's just how baseball works.
That's catching.
And if he is Shane Bieber's personal catcher, I'm okay with that, because
and I think that's what it is.
and I'm okay with limiting Bo against lefties early on.
Yes.
And trying to ease him into it. I'm okay with that.
I
understand people don't want to see Hedges play, but if you have Fry in the lineup as well, and you can lift Hedges after 5 innings, if you're losing, that's fine. I just want to see Vogt not commit to 4 at-bats to Hedges unless you're losing or unless you're winning.
Yeah, I think this is 100% like Bieber had a rough year. Like, can we just all admit to that and be honest? Like, I know we got to go to break here in a second, but he had a rough year. This is a way to, to make him feel comfortable. This is a way to help.
He's thrown to Hedges before, yeah.
This is a way, and he is a guy who's throughout his career liked having a personal catcher. He's had a guy he prefers. So this is a guy he knows, a guy that he feels good throwing to. It's a way to help give comfort to a guy who had a very uncomfortable offseason and had a really bad year. So I also think there's that. Yes, I would love to see Naylor every day, but if you do that, you're going to wear the dude down. So
yeah, it'll get there. I'm not too worried about Hedges playing time just yet. And I prove that you're going to limit his at-bats and use David Fry and do all those things. But yeah, he's going to play 1 day a week, and he might be Bieber's personal catcher. I don't think he's going to start 80 games. I really don't. So we'll get there. We're going to talk about some
not
other guys
without massive injuries.
Yes. If he does, then somebody got hurt. We'll talk about some of the Guardians trades on opening day. They might seem insignificant. You might
like
know
them.
those names.
I like both of them.
Yeah, I think there's some intrigue here. We're going to get into that here in just a second. All right, I told you I took Shane Bieber's over on strikeouts in the game. I also took Wyatt Langford to homer. I don't think that happened, but had to be a little bit bold. That is what it is. I also ended up picking the Guardians. The final line at FanDuel was over 81.5 for the Guardians win total this year. I took the over on that. No matter what you're into betting, it went up at the last second, which I thought was interesting. No matter what you're into, FanDuel has some good action for you. And oh boy, Arizona, I know Tito's not happy. Arizona got knocked out of the tournament on Thursday night. If you had Arizona going all the way in your bracket, get in on FanDuel if you're a new customer. Say goodbye to busted brackets, because FanDuel lets you bet on every game of the tournament. So if you're betting on an upset, maybe you took Clemson. Good for you. If you didn't, well, get on FanDuel. Time to go dancing on America's #1 sportsbook. Right now, new customers get $200 in bonus bets if you win your first $5 bet. So throw down $5 on something easy. Don't take one of these NCAA tournament games, because it's tough right now. Throw a $5 bet on something a little bit easier. Win that bet if you're a new customer, and then $200 going into your account to use on point spreads, money lines, and even pick who is going to win it all in the tournament. Just visit FanDuel.com/lockdown and bet on college hoops until they cut down the necks and they don't make you cry. In a weird twist of fate, Jeff can actually pronounce one of the Guardians trades on Thursday better than I can. We've entered the Twilight Zone.
Peter Strzelecki. I got this one. It was because I never heard any mispronunciations and I never heard his name before. So if I can get to a name before I've ever heard it and I can look at the pronunciation key, then I don't get it confused in my head. I had a fun time the other day at a birthday party where I'm like, is that kid Will or Wyatt? It was just awful. Because that's how my mind works. Peter Strzelecki is fascinating. He was in Milwaukee and he had a FIP in the 3s. He's got some nice red data, including, I don't know how much, Justin, did you go look? Like, his slider has a ton of horizontal movement, like 9 and 7.8 in versus the average. Like, he has a high, and his changeup has good vertical movement. Like, he's got pitches that move. He was very productive. Milwaukee needed a lefty reliever. Arizona wanted to cut some money after they got Seawald, so they got him for Chafin. Now, don't look at his AAA numbers because he went to a terrible place to pitch. For some reason, Arizona didn't try him. I don't understand why Arizona didn't.
He
put
got
him in
one
the pen.
inning.
Yeah, I don't.
Arizona had a good pen last year. So
I mean, it was like put together with spit and bubble gum. I mean, it was effective.
That's what got them to the World Series.
Yeah, I mean, it was effective, but it's weird that they didn't try him. But he was a guy who didn't have a lot of space for. I assume it's going to be a very small amount of cash. They were able to get something rather than just nothing at all. But he's a nice depth guy. It's a funky delivery that allows that movement. Funky. And the fastball is probably his weakest pitch, which is going to be a common theme for the day. But yeah, he is. I like this. This is using. So, you took Straw off the roster, 99 to the 60-day, Stefan to the 60-day, and Devison. That's a big boy swing there by Josh Naylor. You clear 4 spots, and then they weaponized it, and they went out and added 2 interesting relievers when this team is beat up in the pen, and they needed some depth, and they got Strzelecki's got some fun data all around. But before we talk about Kent, I'll now give you the floor.
Yeah, I mean, let's not oversell this and say, like, we're not talking this is going to be a life, a franchise-changing move. This is not going to, replace Trevor Stephan. But you can see why there's some interest here, and I think he can help the team this year. Yeah, the fastball doesn't have great velocity, or it's not great movement. It does have some vertical movement, which is good. But just looking at the data on his fastball, expected 208, 217 batting average. Not terrible. Expected slugging's 417. That's not great, but it's not awful either. And yeah, the secondaries are good. The sinker keeps the ball on the ground when he throws the sinker. Guys have a launch angle of 8, so they're not hitting fly balls off the sinker, and that doesn't get hit hard. He does not give up a ton of hard contact.
No, he does not get hit hard.
So, and that's the thing too. It's right
you want that in a pen arm,
right? Before coming into Thursday, before opening day. Because Cade Smith made the opening day roster, you had nobody in AAA that you could call up in case you needed a reliever. Let's say the pen got toasted, and you're like, we don't have anybody to throw tomorrow night. Someone got hurt. All our guys have thrown 2 or 3 days in a row. There's nobody. We need to be able to call somebody up. Now they have 1, maybe 2 guys, depending on the role for Zach Kent, they can call up. That's important. Okay, you need the bullpen depth. Strzelecki, I can't pronounce the name, Jeff. Strzelecki has an option. Unlike Ben Lively, he has an option. So
Ben Lively has all the options he wants.
He has an option. So that's super important. So he and Cade Smith, for the time being, can kind of rotate the I-71 shuttle if they need to get a fresh arm in the bullpen, especially right now with Henches on the IL, without Lively on the IL, with Curry on the IL, and then Karinchak and Stefan. Stefan's out for the year, and Karinchak's out for at least 60 days. So it's an important move just to have the depth. And I think that he could be like a 6th inning guy. He can just be a guy maybe he replaces Daniel De Los Santos as that guy that bridges the gap if the starter goes 5 and you can't quite go to a Barlow or a Henches when he comes back. You need someone to bridge the gap. I think Strzelecki can be that guy. I don't think he's great, but I think he's pretty solid. So cash considerations there. And by the way, both those guys went to AAA. So
real quickly, we're going to be a power machine this year. First hit of the year is a double. So that's clearly a sign that this team is just
David Fry. What does he do, Jeff? He hits left-handers.
What do you do in the minors? He murdered lefties. Yeah, I mean, that is when you and I talked about him a year ago.
They won the trade with the Brewers.
I mean, after everything else that happened with Mejia, that was that's an easy win. He got suspended, and we don't need to go into that. But a year ago this time, we're like, this is this guy's role. He can catch, he can play all over. And in the minors, he kills left-handed pitching.
Yep. All right, Zach Kent, this was kind of your guy. I'm interested too, but you were more interested in him than I was.
So I immediately, because I love Bryce, I texted him. I also was like, oh, I'm excited because I had been hearing about Zach Kent. He was one of those guys who's been rising. And we have our first run of the game. Look at that. I know all the Freeman Freeman, right?
Yeah, base hit.
Yeah, double.
Back-to-back doubles. Look at that.
Not playing
extra base hits.
Not playing bloops. But it was a hustle double, 100% good on Freeman. If he doesn't hustle, he's out there. But Yeah, to get back to it, Kent is a guy who is a late day 2 pick, a guy who, put in the time and effort, came from VMI, might get a bit of the bad body label from some, but secondary
Yeah.
offerings are strong. The slider in particular is a great pitch. If Cleveland can work some magic with his velocity, he has had a hard time maintaining his velocity jumps. He's touched he was sitting mid 90s. He missed most of last year with an injury. He's touched 98. Both secondary offerings are strong, a bit of a theme today.
Yeah.
But Cleveland was able to go ahead and, add 2 interesting pitchers who can give them depth. Could he be a starter? Maybe. He's probably a reliever. I think that's talking to most people what he is going to be. But he is a guy who's only available because he wasn't healthy and because Texas was feeling a crunch and Cleveland needed depth. And he's an interesting depth arm. He is, ceiling wise, definitely the leader in this group. Strzelecki is the floor king. He is the ceiling king. I don't know. The czar of ceilings of who they got today. But he's an interesting guy. Really, he was Bryce's first ever guest on Locked On Rangers. Said he's a really, really nice kid, hard worker. Health was just the bugaboo a year ago, and the slider is legit 60.
Yeah, I'll be curious to see what Kent's role is. I wouldn't be surprised if he starts out as a starter in the minors because I think Curry, when he comes back, will likely go into that role. And if Kent is a starter, that gives you Kent, Cantillo, and Curry as 3 guys. That's an interesting three letterings there. Anyway, yeah, that's just an interesting way to go with that. But that
I'd rather if one of them
options.
had an F name than you'd have KFC.
FC. Let's see what Zach Kent's middle name is. It's
I don't have
Zachary
that data.
Allen Kent. That's too bad. We have XAK. I don't know. Whatever. Yeah, I'll be curious to see what his all over the place. I just dropped my microphone. I'm very out of practice here. I'll be curious to see what his role is, but I think ultimately with the fastball and slider, and he can end up being a reliever because you put him in the bullpen, like you said, maybe his fastball, ticks up a little bit, and that helps it out a little bit. At one time, he was throwing a little bit harder. He was throwing the upper 90s, so I wonder if they can recapture that.
Which is what they're good at.
I was just Cleveland's no stranger to helping guys with velocity, and added velocity would go a long way for him.
And Texas's pitching development is awful. Awful.
Oops.
Well, I mean, it's essentially,
not for them. Yeah.
I mean, how bad is it when a guy leaves your organization and gets better in Kansas City? Like that says enough. That speaks volumes.
Before we get on to some other unfortunate news for some of the Guardians minor leaguers, we'll also talk more in-game action. I also want to say, Cleveland traded $250,000 of international money to Texas for this, which is not like a huge amount, but it's not insignificant.
No, it's value.
It's value, and just so people are clear how this works. So it's not actually trading real physical money. All this is okay, Cleveland takes $250,000. Every team has a budget for how much they're allowed to spend in the international market. And Cleveland basically just said, we're going to take $250,000 out of our budget that we're allowed to spend, and it gives Texas more money to spend in their budget. So
real money never changes that money. So basically, you're telling me that for the fans who are going to see it this way, that they just got a guy
that's what I was trying to avoid, Jeff. Come on,
money, that now they don't have to spend that money, right? That the Dolan just saved $250,000 by making this trade.
We'll talk about money they saved by cutting players the other day. So be right back.
So they were so cheap.
I was muting you there. No, I'm not letting you do this to me. No.
Honestly, the one nice thing you always say about ownership is, and it's the thing that drove me nuts with Bernie P, who's like, oh, they're going to chintz out. It's like, this team always goes over slot. They always spend their international money. Yeah, Zach Kent is that international money is to go get a 16-year-old. And they didn't need it. You already have your deals in place. It's money that can benefit another team. And instead it's to get a guy who, might help the team this year. So if you're complaining, it's
help develop for the future. He's got options too. Zach Kent's got a lot of options. He's older, but he's got a lot of options.
He's got almost as many as Ben Lively does. Darn it.
He does not. No money changes hands here. And the Texas just gets to spend more money. Cleveland just has a little less to spend in their pool. So no actual money was traded for this guy, but that's how that works. All right. We talked about some acquisitions that were fun. And so Karinchak's on the 60-day IL. Stefan's out for the year with Tommy John. He was put on the 60-day IL. That's how they added Carrasco and Beatty. And then these two guys are both on the 40, and they're in Columbus right now. So over the last week now, Cleveland has cut a couple guys to the minor leagues. And as you know, we like to give these guys their run a little bit and just give them their due and hope the best for them. So let's start with the first group a week ago. I'll just quickly mention all the names and just pick out a couple we want to talk about. Michael Berglund.
Like to at least say something. Berglund, you and I both thought that he had a chance.
Let me run through them all, and then we'll talk about them. So Michael Berglund, Jason Billis, catcher Eric Rodriguez, left-handed pitcher Adam Scott, and then right-handed pitcher Tyler Zuber.
Berglund and Rodriguez. Berglund came a year ago. You thought he maybe would get to the majors as a backup. Rodriguez has always been a good organizational soldier. They've cut a lot of
almost
catchers
made his
recently.
major league debut.
Yeah, he almost had that happen. But I mean, not unsurprising for either. Tyler Zuber, we were like, hey, Kansas City's terrible at development. It didn't look like there was anything to get there. Billis, hey, the White Sox have struggled with some development. He is an interesting arm. He's been well thought of since his high school days. Let's move him to the pen, see if Cleveland can find anything. They couldn't. He was
Adam Scott. I
thought he was gonna.
Yeah, when they came back from the pandemic in 2021, he was throwing harder. Yeah, 2021 he was good, and then he never maintained that. So I thought for sure he was going to be. He had a great slider. He had a really funky delivery. The fastball velocity was up. Then he got hurt, and he just never recovered. But nice guy. I got to talk to his high school coach at one point. His high school coach was really nice. And then Berglund I thought was a future backup, defensive backup. It just did not work out for him.
Minor league Rule 5. Minor league.
Yeah.
5 guy, right?
Today's cuts, we had catcher Nelson Arangan, outfielder Jose Gomez, first baseman Will Bartlett, infielder Miguel Lopez, infielder Emerson Peroy, outfielder Samuel Pera from the first group.
Yeah. Let's just go with group 1 for now and see how it goes from there. Bartlett, to me, was the name in this group. Just because he was a 9th round pick, they gave a decent amount of cash from. He was an IMG Academy high school kid. He was a catcher in high school, quickly moved to first base. Actually had a pretty good first year. I was kind of intrigued to follow him after his debut. Unfortunately, it just didn't really ever. That was the peak.
Yeah, Bartlett had a lot of power. It was a catcher. Yeah, and I thought people thought maybe there's a Mike Napoli profile here. Because I tell you what, I've watched the guy take batting practice before, and he hits the heck out of the ball in batting practice, but never translated again. Another strikeout for Shane Bieber, a changeup strikeout. Wow. Gomez a couple years ago, or 2 years ago, he's only 19, so he's still a young guy. But I had people ask me, "Oh, Jose Gomez, power hitter in the DSL. This guy looks like he's really interesting." A lot of strikeouts, very small guy. Just another reason you can't trust. Not to disparage the guy as he's being cut, but you just cannot trust. You can't trust that stuff.
Yeah, you can't trust those numbers. I mean, he was a guy people got very excited for. I remember there were some people who were making him a top 20 prospect. It's like, don't get focused on DSL stats. And then, he got some opportunities in, the rookie league last year, and a 43-8 strikeout to walk ratio is an issue.
It's rough. Here's the second group. There's a couple more names here.
Well, here, just to quickly go through, we didn't finish everyone here. Miguel Lopez was an infielder who really hadn't played too much the last 2 years, more of a depth guy who never got out of the rookie leagues. Samuel Para in one of my OTP leagues became something, but he was just kind of a part-time or backup. 2022, he got a full season, and he was good, not great. Emerson Peroy is another 19-year-old kid who they're moving on from, who just never hit in his opportunities in the ACL and rookie leagues. And then there was a point in time I remember looking at Nelson Arguinguera, just because when he was 18 in the DSL, again, that's why you don't look at DSL stuff. He had a really big year. He had an 859 OPS. He played, quite a bit, and then he struggled last year.
Another strikeout. Shane Bieber racking it up.
They just don't have that ability anymore to with the lack of, with the cap on minor leaguers. Some of these 19-year-old kids might have stayed in years past, but they don't stay now because you can only have so many guys on the roster.
Cuts. Yeah, 165. Second group, outfielder Cesar Adrogo, outfielder Corey Holland, catcher Mark Filia, pitchers Yuri Gervasio, Frederick Garcia, infielder Oscar Cedeno, and catcher Wilmer Hernandez. For me, Holland was kind of a project. Some people liked him. He had power, speed combination, just never really fit.
His dad was a hitting coach in Texas. He was an overslot day 3 guy who I was very intrigued by. One of those guys I was tempted to put in my top 30 in his draft year in terms of prospects, but just, he put together a decent year. Was it last year or 2 years ago?
He did, yeah.
But it was just a little bit too late. He was more of, and by decent years, like a 729 OPS in Akron this past year. It wasn't like huge numbers. Yeah. Mark Filia was probably the next biggest name, and that was just another catcher.
He was a
undrafted free agent out of UC San Diego.
Baseball bloodlines.
Yeah, and last year was his first year. Like, didn't they add him in the offseason or something like that?
Yeah.
Just didn't have that. And then Cesar Adrogo was, to me, the next big name. At least he got up to, Akron.
He was just filler at Akron last year, but he had some power in his swing. Yeah, he took some big hacks.
Yuri Gervasio is another one of those guys who he did get up to Lynchburg. I didn't have too much on him. He moved up the line, was kind of more of a depth guy. And then
Cedeno was a guy that moved around a lot. Oscar Cedeno, he didn't really do a whole lot offensively, but he was pretty versatile in terms of defense. Smaller guy, switch hitter who was 20 that never unfortunately got out of the complex leagues.
And then Garcia was 22. So he was an older guy. He had been, with his organization since he was 17 in 2018. And as a pitcher, he just struggled with his command. He could miss some bats again in the
strikeout
leagues. But is that 5 or 6? Six. First 6 outs, all via the strikeout. And then Wilmer Hernandez, yet another catcher. It was not a good day to be a catcher in the system. And he's another guy who never got out of organizational baseball. It had some ups and downs in terms of performance. Was more or less almost a backup even in the instructs. So we wish all of these guys well. It's not an easy thing to be let go, and we always like to shine some light on them as much as we can.
Yep.
But this is, owners getting doing things and moving around, cutting them out. It's unfortunate.
That's all for this week, folks. I can't do this with Jeff anymore. It's been too long of a week.
Too long
of a week. All right. Shane Bieber is the Cy Young Award winner again. 6 strikeouts in 2 innings of work against Oakland as we get to some live in-game action here. We'll be back next week. Back in your feeds Monday morning. We'll talk about the weekend. We got to get to our second base preview, so we're going to do that. Hopefully it's a 4-game sweep from the Athletics. We'll get to it.
And who knows? Maybe we'll do a live stream. We got to debate that off the air. But thank you all for watching, and go Guardians, go.